So if there's anyone in your group who wasn't able to come, this information will all be available. So to give you an outline of what we're going to talk about today, we'll give you some introductions of who's on the Grasshopper Coordinating Committee so you know who your contact points are through this semester. We'll give you some background about the Grasshopper program. And we'll also give you some guidelines for what to do when you're getting ready to teach. So this will include some things of what you should ask your teacher, some tips for teaching in this virtual landscape. And we'll also send you into breakout rooms just for a bit so you can meet some of the other fellows and hear how they're adapting their course for this new format. We'll also cover the requirements of the semester in terms of what forms you need to fill out, what trainings you need to complete, and also what workshops and resources are available for you to help craft your course. And importantly, how you can purchase supplies for your course. So we'll talk about budgets and reimbursements. So my name is Shannon. I am the Public Service Center Liaison for Grasshopper. I think I'm technically also the president, but I am joined by two other people on this coordinating committee. And if you guys want to unmute and introduce yourselves, just to put a name with you.
So I'm Andrea Roser, and I am the course match organizer. So I was the one that's been emailing you all the time and telling you when you're matched with your teachers and asking you questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Jumana. I am the workshop coordinator. So you'll be hearing more about the workshops we have lined up for you guys.
Thanks. So if you're ever trying to get in touch with us, you can either email us at just our grasshopper@cornell.edu email, or as well as our individual emails. Either way, you can get hold of us. So Grasshopper is made possible by the Public Service Center, which is on campus. And we're joined on this call by our advisor, Bethany. Bethany, if you want to introduce yourself.
You're muted, Bethany.
Been a long day. Hoping for a snow day tomorrow. Anyway, it's great to see everybody. I recognize a few names. So Grasshopper is in the PSC. The Public Service Center is located in 300 Kennedy Hall, so we're the third floor. The Public Service Center oversees a lot of student-run organizations. So I particularly oversee the K-12. So all of my orgs oversee groups that work with basically kids in the community. I have groups that work from pre-K to high school. And the PSC really focuses on the idea of community, partnership, reciprocal learning. And so we like to go into these programs thinking about that idea of community partnership. And so I really kind of want to keep that in mind when you're working with these teachers and you're working with these students. I am going to be the one, letting the board know about trainings for the PSC, who's submitted things, who hasn't, any type of kind of risk management, reimbursement, any types of those things, those will eventually funnel down to me. So I will probably be emailing you all at some point, really emailing me. So it's great to meet you, and I'm really excited to hear a little bit about your plans for your lessons and how you're altering things for the semester. My background is actually marine biology, gone to informal STEM education, to Cornell. So it's been a fun road. Yeah, so feel free to let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Bethany. So if you're interested in outreach, which I assume you all are because you're here, we've also linked the PSC website in these slides that there's other K-12 outreach opportunities on there. So be sure to check those out. To tell you a little bit more about Grasshopper, this program has been around for quite a while. So we were one of the PSC's original programs. I think 1993 was the first year that they started. But obviously this year is very different than past. So all of our student groups will be teaching in a 100% virtual format this year. But what we're hoping is we're still going to be able to retain the aspects that make Grasshopper really fun for the students that you work with. So being able to drop off supplies to the schools so that they can still do kind of hands-on engaging activities. That's really what we're hoping for this year. And that was something that our match teachers were really excited about when they applied. So total, all of you adds up to 16 different schools that we'll be connecting with. And we had a total of 27 teachers that have been matched, and half of them have never participated in Grasshopper before, and the other half are some of our returning veterans. In past years, we typically reach about 1,000 K through 12 students, so to be determined how many it will add up to this year. But Grasshopper's reach is pretty expansive in Ithaca and some of the surrounding schools in Tompkins County. So we do have a website for Grasshopper, which we have some more information. We also have information about past courses. So if you're looking for some ideas, there's some additional resources there. So all of you in this meeting have been matched with a prospective teacher, and you might be wondering what your next steps are. So the first most important thing is to communicate with your teacher. So as soon as possible, reach out to them if you haven't already, and try to set up a time where you can meet over Zoom or Google Meets, whatever platform they prefer, just to start talking about the logistics of how can you make your course happen. We're going to talk about designing your lesson plans, and you'll want to get started on the required trainings and forms right away because many of these need to be completed before you enter the classroom to teach. And then we'll also talk about budgeting and different ways that you can purchase supplies for your course. So to get started on that, when you set up a time to meet with your teacher, some things that you'll want to make sure you address are scheduling when you plan to teach your lessons. The teachers may have a preference for this based on what works for them time-wise, what works best for them curriculum-wise. Maybe in the month of April, they'll be covering insect anatomy, and so that'd be a great time to have their Grasshopper course come in and enrich the learning that's already happening. So you'll want to schedule time as soon as you can. And also discuss what specific plans you have with your teacher and be open to suggestions and input. So they may have some ideas of what kind of format will work well for their students. They know their students best. So be sure to ask them and be receptive to what ideas they have. It's also a great idea to ask them why they chose their course, your course. There might have been something that really jumped out at them of something that they wanted to bring to their students. So it's always good to know that going in so you know what things to emphasize. This year, you'll also want to ask questions about their virtual classroom. So just knowing how many students are typically on the calls, whether there are specific accommodations that teacher makes to help all their students learn, knowing what platforms the students use. So you'll want to integrate into that as best as you can so that there's some continuity for the students when they log into their calls each day. Also check with your teacher, especially for some of our elementary level. Often the teachers have some classroom management strategies that they've really worked hard to kind of ingrain into their kids throughout the year. So those can be kind of an easy, fun thing for you to adapt. To give you an example, I worked with an elementary school teacher, and to try to get the kids' attention, she would just say peanut butter, and they had to put their hands on their head, and they would quiet down, and they weren't kind of released from peanut butter until you said jelly, and then they could go back to what they're doing. And it was silly and weird, but it was oddly effective because by the month of April, the kids had been doing this for 9 months. So it's goofy things like that the teacher might be able to give you a heads up of kids respond really well to these certain keywords. And lastly, you want to figure out with your teacher how the best way to get supplies to the classroom is. So we did survey the teachers in this ahead of time. The vast majority of them said it's absolutely possible for you to drop a box of supplies off at the school's front office. Your teacher might have some more details about how to actually do this, whether you should have individual packages for students, things like that. So just be sure to communicate that ahead of time. And schools also indicated that they have ways to get supplies to students who themselves are virtual learning. So they have kind of ways to send that home. But again, that's something that you'll want to coordinate and know specifically. If you want to know what your teacher answered to this question, in our post-meeting email, there is an Excel sheet where you can look up your teacher's name and you can see some of their responses to these questions. So that'll be a good thing to check out after the meeting. Preparing your lesson. So as you're putting things together, again, ask your teacher because they know best how their own students learn. You'll want to avoid long speeches. So don't do what I'm doing right now and giving you a monologue of things. It's nice to give small bits to the students, have them do an activity, and then come back and talk about it. A good way to make things engaging rather than talk at them is to ask the students for answers. And if you're each time that you return into the virtual classroom, it's nice to kind of review what you did the previous time they were there. So you can quiz them a little bit, ask them some questions just to reinforce what learning already took place. If you find yourself with some spare time at the end of your class, some good things to get kids thinking are to ask them, how does what you learned today apply to your everyday life? Also give them opportunities to ask you questions. So they might be very interested in what your kind of career path looks like, and talk about what career opportunities exist in your field. So this is a cool way to expose kids to, I don't know, different careers that they can dream and aspire to. And they always seem to take very kindly to these graduate students who come into the classroom and are approachable and hands-on. And so they seem to really value the chance to just ask you questions about what you do. When you're putting together your lesson plans, a few resources that might be helpful to you are some of the curriculum guidelines for New York State. So 2 of them are linked here. One is just the general core curriculum, and the other one is specific to science standards. I think they might also have math in there, I'm not sure. So you can look in these, you can look up the grade level that you'll be teaching, and it's helpful to get an idea of kind of what vocabulary or what concepts are kids of this age group learning about at the time. So that can help you really gear it towards an age appropriate level. Because we will be virtual teaching, there are some added things to consider this year. I'd say the biggest one is just to remain flexible. As things kind of change and as students may be moving from in-classroom to virtual or back, just stay in communication with your teacher to figure out how you can best adapt. We already touched upon finding ways to get supplies into the classroom. But the last thing is to be aware of your surroundings. So make sure you're Zooming from a quiet and controlled space. If you have a lot of roommates, maybe you'd want to consider booking a conference room if you're able to get to campus, just so that there's few factors as possible. And the other thing is to pay attention to your background. So to make this kind of engaging, if someone wants to unmute themselves and identify something in my Zoom background that I should probably remove if I'm going to be virtual teaching to kids.
The beer bottle on your desk?
Yes. So this is an example of something that this is actually ginger beer. It's non-alcoholic, but the students on the other end of the camera don't know that. So you want to make sure that you move as many distracting, disrupting or inappropriate items as possible. If you have virtual backgrounds that you can turn on, that is also helpful. I know my computer can't handle the virtual backgrounds and it blurs out half your face. So do whatever you need to do to get kind of a blank slate behind you so that the focus and emphasis is on your course content and not on what's behind you. So at this point, we're going to send you on to randomly assigned breakout rooms, and feel free to keep discussion flowing, but we'd love for you all to introduce yourselves, your name, the department you're from, just a little bit of background about who you are. We also encourage you to describe your course and what you're planning to teach. And what we really hope for this 5 to 10 minute session is to share any tips or tricks, that you might have for being in the classroom if you've taught before. And maybe brainstorm some ways that you and the others in your group are adapting your course to a virtual teaching format, since this is pretty new for everyone this year. So I will go ahead and start to assign these. We have about 30 people in the meeting, so maybe we'll assign 6 or 7 breakout rooms. Zoom recording the meeting. So next we're going to talk about just kind of the expectations of you as a fellow in the program. The biggest one being maintaining an open line of communication with your teacher. I'd say one of the most common issues we run into, as someone who's teaching in the course, is sometimes you get a teacher that's not immediately responsive to your emails. Teachers are busy, so don't be afraid to send follow-up emails, to check back in. And if after a few kind of consistent attempts to establish contact, you're not hearing back, please reach out to us as soon as possible. Sometimes it just takes getting a stern email from someone being like, hey, do you still want to participate in this? And we usually get a response. So be patient, but also be persistent and keeping in contact. We expect that your course will be as hands-on and as engaging as possible, even in this new landscape. And in general, reach out to us if you're running into any issues in the classroom or you have questions about preparing. We're more than happy to help. The specific expectations of you this semester are to complete all the required forms and training before you go into teach. We also have a spread of workshops that Jumana has put together that she's going to talk about next. We expect that you will attend at least one of these. You are of course encouraged to attend more of them. But our hope for these is that they'll help you, kind of learn some things and help you design your lesson plans. The other specifics are something new this year is you'll need to submit your budget for pre-approval. And we also have a new set of reimbursement forms. And then after you teach, there is also kind of an end of the year survey that we use to keep track of just statistics about, what Grasshopper is doing. This can help the program apply for funding in the future. And we are also asking you to keep a loose track of your service hours. So this is time that you spend planning your course, shopping for materials. Anytime that you spend devoted to Grasshopper, you can include that. We just want a rough idea of how much time everyone is spending. So there'll be a place for you to submit that kind of timesheet. So now I'll kick it over to Jumana to talk about the workshops.
Yeah, as you guys already discussed in your breakout rooms, teaching is hard, especially in the virtual setting. And to help you guys with planning your lessons, we have invited 3 speakers to conduct workshops. So these workshops start next Monday and they'll all be in the evening. So hopefully most of you guys can attend them, but you're required to attend one. You can attend, you're obviously encouraged to attend more than one. I will send out reminder emails the day before the workshop. So you have the Zoom link and everything to go for the next day, but the Zoom link is going to be the same. And I think we're going to share the slides with them, right?
Yes.
So the Zoom link is also here if you don't receive the email. In addition to the 3 workshops, we are also opening up Center for Teaching Innovation Workshop for you guys. They have a long list of workshops that I think will be really useful for you, especially in the online teaching setting. So make sure to check out the CTI Get Set workshop website where you can register for the workshop and get the Zoom link over there. And lastly, to make sure that you guys are attending the workshops, this is a new thing that we've added this year, is to take attendance. We are going to ask you to take a screenshot of you at the workshop and upload it on this feedback form, which is right here. And let us know how the workshop was. If you like the speaker, if you like the content, what can be different, what can be improved. So stuff like that will help us plan better workshops in the future.
Okay, thanks. So here we just have a kind of checklist of things that you are absolutely required to teach, required to complete before you teach. So one of these is going to be a pretty comprehensive training that's on identifying and reporting misconduct. This is all geared towards keeping an eye out for red flags and signs that your students might not be safe. Another step will be we want you to register with Grasshopper on Cornell's Campus Groups website. This will be a place where you'll be able to access a lot of the Grasshopper related forms and also keep track of who's in the group. So of those forms, there is one that you'll have to sign that's a statement about working with minors. There's another just more general Cornell volunteer form. This working with minors form is also where you will upload your certificate for this misconduct training. We're also going to be sending out a link to a pre-recorded session that's just about mitigating risk in this kind of teaching environment. And something new this year are memorandums of understanding, or MOUs. And if Bethany, if you want to touch on those here, that would be great.
Yes, so generally, okay, so I will say that I started in this position October 2019. So I was not here even a full year before everything changed in March. And so with all of our other groups, we always have MOUs with our community partners. They're just very general and they come to us from risk management, then run them by legal. It's a lot of basically covering us from a legal standpoint. So right now they are a fillable PDF. So you put Grasshopper and your elementary school and the first 2 designated slots, they will autofill. And then you can save them and you can email them out to your teachers. I'll put together a like an email template that you can use, and then you can CC me when you email them out. I have no problem with them being signed electronically. More often than not, the teacher will send it to the principal to get signed. And then once they're signed, they'll come back to me. I have to sign it as well. And then I'll send it back to the teacher so they have a completely signed copy. With this group, we're having the fellows do it because you work with so many different teachers in different schools. Most of my other groups, they work with maybe 1 or 2 at most, like 4 or 5 community partners. So I think this might work a little bit better, especially because you're already going to be communicating with your teacher. So hopefully this won't take too long. I don't foresee this being something that will keep you from starting your lessons. We'll try to get them out as soon as possible to you, but realistically, the only thing that legally like really should happen before teaching would be the working with minors thing. So I'll keep you updated. I'm actually not sure if they've done MOUs with Grasshopper in the past, but it's probably something that we should start doing in the future.
Thanks, Bethany. Yeah, this is the first year I think we've had these forms, but hopefully this form template will make it a pretty kind of easy thing for you to send to your teacher. They'll get a signature, you send it back and forward that on to us. And lastly, we expect you to attend at least 1 workshop. Depending on when you're teaching, you may or may not be able to take it before you teach, but we do encourage you to take it one, at any point during the semester. And you can keep taking them even after you teach. So to just kind of give you an idea of what these trainings are and where you can find them, the first one is this identifying and reporting misconduct training. You'll want to access this through the CU Learns website, and the course number is listed here. The training doesn't actually take place on CU Learns. It really just gives you a PowerPoint that has a link at the end of the slides that you'll want to click on to then launch that training. This is the only way that you can get to the correct site with the correct credentials. So trying to kind of Google it separately will not get you to the right place. So make sure you access it through this route. It takes about 30 minutes. You'll get a certificate of completion, and that's something you'll upload onto these next forms. So the 2 things that you'll fill out, and you'll want to make sure that you first join the Graduate Student School Outreach Program, Grasshopper, on campus groups, so that we can kind of see that you've completed it and keep track. And those 2 forms are going to be linked in the slides here. The last thing is this session on risk management. That's a pre-recorded YouTube video with Bethany and Kurt that took place in the fall. So we encourage you to watch that at your convenience. We had a question in the chat for that identifying misconduct course. How often do we need to complete this? Bethany, do you have any guidance on that?
I was just typing, but yeah, Aria, if you've already done it this year, you're good. You can just upload the certificate again so that we can have a record that you've done it with, it's with Grasshopper. But yeah, this is the online training is once a year. All the forms, if you work with any other organizations that in the PSC where you've had to sign forms, you're going to have to sign them again. This year, because of COVID, instead of having our Working with Minors and Cornell volunteer forms be an annual thing, they are a semester thing. So if you've signed them in the fall already for some other reason, you're going to have to re-sign those forms again this spring.
Thanks. So that kind of finishes up the training portion of it. And now we want to talk about the budget. So the biggest thing that's new this year is that we're asking for pre-approval of your supplies. So we have a request form that you can fill out, the items that you're planning to purchase, the cost of each of those. And when you submit that, that's going to go over to Bethany and to the Public Service Center. And hopefully within 3 days or probably quicker, you'll get kind of an approval for that. And then you can go ahead and purchase the supplies. The budget for this year is the same as it has been in past. You have a maximum of $150 that you can spend on your course. We are able to reimburse what you spend on tax. That is something we haven't been able to do in the past, but we can now. You may or may not be doing as much traveling as you did in past years, depending on how your supply drop-off works. We are able to reimburse for mileage at the kind of federal mileage reimbursement rate, but we have a cap on that. We aren't able to use more than half of the course allowance for that. So you can use 75 as a maximum for mileage reimbursement, but that only leaves you 75 to spend on your course. So that's just something to keep in mind. We have a few groups this year that are actually teaching for multiple classrooms. And with that, you might need added supplies because there's more students. So that applies to you, and the $150 budget is not enough. Contact us and we can modify that to make sure that you can get the supplies that you need. As you're thinking about buying, your supplies, you might fill out your form, you submit it, and then you go, oh no, I forgot to add something to it. We just ask that you send an additional second form for pre-approval. So it's okay to have more than one as long as you don't go over budget. And once you submit that request form and it gets approved, you'll then be given a link where you can upload receipts to get your reimbursement. So this is the main way that usually our fellows purchase supplies for the course, is you can buy them, save the receipts, and then in order to get reimbursed, you will scan those receipts, upload them to the reimbursement form. And you'll want to do this within 1 month of teaching. The sooner the better. And the absolute last day to submit we're setting is June 20th. That way it can be processed by the end of the budget year. If you don't want to purchase the supplies with your own funds ahead of time, that's okay. You don't have to. The second option is you can purchase them through eShop, and then Bethany will help assist us to get those ordered. We've had very few people use this option in the past, so we're actually going to go through a quick demo on how to use eShop if you're unfamiliar. So I'll kick things over to Andrea.
Sorry, the mute button kept disappearing on me. Okay, so I know a lot of you, at least if you're in the Department of Neurobiology and Behavior, we have to use eShop all the time to order things for our department. But all you really need to do is Google eShop Cornell, and then it comes up, at least for me, the first link comes up. You go in and click eShop here. And sometimes it has me log in through the two-step login. You just use your UCID and normal password, or else I guess I logged in recently, so it comes up. Then you see a screen where you have all of the different vendors that you can choose from. Most of them are lab-based supplies, but the ones that you guys would probably use most is they do have Amazon. So Amazon is down here. They have, what was the other one? I can't find it now, but they have like WB Mason and they have other places you can do, but Amazon is probably where most of you will choose. So you click on whatever business you want to go to, and then you click punch out. And so this will redirect you to another window for that actual company. But you have to make sure that you do not close out of the original eShop tab, because it will bring you back to that later on. Okay, so say that I'm in my Amazon now. So say I want like index cards. I don't know. It's the first thing that popped into my mind. Okay, so we found our index cards. It's just like normal Amazon. You do add to cart. And then unlike your normal Amazon account, it says submit these items to approval. So you can always view your cart and make sure you have everything in it that you want to be buying. And then you click submit these items for approval. And see how it returned to my previous page. So this now will always come up no matter which supplier or which business you pick from. And there's two key things. One is you always have to write a business purpose. So small business. So you always have to put in a business purpose. So we use index cards for the Grasshopper program during one of our activities where the kids draw eyeballs on them. I don't know. And so you always click save, and then you have to do assign cart. So now is where you have to put in Bethany's name. So you do search for assignee. You can type in her email, BRR7. You do search, and then it's Bethany. You select, and then her name goes on top here. Okay. And so now in the note to her, you want to say like, hello, Bethany. And then you want to put your course, you want to put that it's Grasshopper, you want to put your business purpose. We'll give you an email saying exactly what to do, but you want to write her a little note, and then I won't click assign because it'll go to her, and then you click assign. And then after you do that, you're going to get an email to your Cornell email saying from eShop saying that you had a purchase with your note that you sent and everything like that. And so then it should be good, and Bethany will take it from there after that. So I will go ahead and I'll make screenshots of all the lists of the directions on how to do this. But once you do it once or twice, it's pretty simple. So. Shannon is muted again.
Thank you. So for eShop, one of the things that we're still figuring out is when to specify the address that you would like the thing shipped to. At least for now, we're going to say put it in that notes description of the address of where you want to pick it up. And if that changes, we'll kind of let you know and give you more specifics on that. Similar to that with the reimbursement forms, because those are all new this year. If we're encountering difficulties or if you have feedback on how to make them more efficient, please let us know and be patient as we kind of work out and make this system a little bit more optimal. So one last thing, we want to make sure that being able to teach in a classroom is not restricted to those that have cars. So in the past, PSC has made available to us vehicles that you, once you passed kind of some requirements as far as a driving test and having a clean driving record and getting all of that sorted out, is that you're actually able to sort of check out a car so that you could drive to your classroom if it was far away and you can get to it by other means. So that is still an option this year. However, vehicle access is pretty restricted due to COVID. And we don't anticipate students driving, as far or as frequently. So if you are in a position where you want to use the PSE vehicles that you need those to teach, we encourage you to reach out to Bethany as soon as possible, because it does take a while to get approval to drive these vehicles if you haven't already passed Cornell's things. Usually there's an in-person driving test, so there's a lot of consideration. So if that's something that you need, send an email tonight before you sign off for the call. So with that, we'll just kind of run through the final checklist. Feel free to refer back to this slide throughout the semester. But as soon as possible, you want to reach out to your teacher. And when you know what you want to buy, submit those requests for approval. Before you go into the classroom, make sure you have all of your trainings and forms signed and you've attended a workshop, ideally, and also watched that pre-recorded session on risk management. After you teach, it's really important that you take care of the reimbursements as soon as possible. The quicker you get those in, the quicker we can then issue those checks. We encourage you to upload your lesson plans to the Grasshopper site. We'll have a form for doing this later on, but this is a really useful resource to future fellows who are just trying to plan and get ideas. So we're really trying to kind of curate all of the lesson plans that you've worked hard on. Things that will become later is you'll also get an end of the year evaluation to give us kind of some statistics, also some feedback about how your teacher pairing relationship went. So we know, was this a positive collaboration, things like that. And we'll also ask for your volunteer hours. And there's some directions on submitting those here. We won't go through them, but they're there for future reference when you send these slides out. So for that, we want to spend some time to take any questions, comments, concerns that